Alright, welcome to another Stormgate cast. I'm Algorithmor, and this is going to be a game. This is the first game I'm casting on the new patch 0.1, and this is a game between oCRaM and Fiction. oCRaM and Fiction are playing this game in the Goblin Cluckfest 3 Tokyo Drift, and this game was played out in the round of 24. In fact, this is a series, a best of 3 series, and I will cast all 3. Now, of course, oCRaM here is playing in the blue Infernal, and his opponent, Fiction, is also playing Infernal in the red Infernal in the top right. And of course, we're on Titan's Causeway here, and again, this is the first game of a best of 3. So far, it looks like we have a late fault from Fiction, whereas we have a conclave and a farm for creeping from oCRaM, and we're getting a little bit of harassment on these imps. Just a little bit of white health down. It's mostly just the scouting. And of course, teleports back to put some pressure on oCRaM's Hexen, who also teleports back. Of course, that's mostly just intended to be some scouting. Now we're going to get some creeping with these fell hogs from the farm, tanking most of the damage. Of course, in the new patch, the creeps got a little bit tougher, and they give it a little less income. So, making it just a little bit harder to do those creep openings. You have to commit a little bit more to your army. And it looks like over here, we also had some creeping, and we've got 5 fiends here. I'm not sure if one of those was a split brute. It's very possible. Again, creeping out their vision towers. Creeping with fiends can be really good because fiends do a lot of DPS, but fiends don't have a lot of hit points. And you can see here, Fiction microing back the weak fiends, in fact, sending them off to the healing camp just to get a little bit of juice before coming back. And over here from oCRaM, it looks like we're getting slightly different strategies here. oCRAM's going for a conclave and gaunt based composition, and we're seeing fiends mostly out of Fiction. Now, this is an interesting little battle. Looks like they're going to fight over these Shadow Mastiffs, which of course are going to give you a little bit. Oh, those fiends are trying to capture that Hexen, but some defensive fiends managing to keep them off, and it looks like oCRaM was able to pick up that last Shadow Mastiff. Only one of them, I think, going to Fiction, but still pretty good creep harass, because now Fiction's going to go back and get these ones for a little bit of boost income and that speed boost too. Though we see oCRaM pushing out a little further. Looks like he's going to push into this ore camp, this therium camp. Now these guys can hit pretty hard, but if you position your units exactly right, you can kind of glitch them out. And that's what oCRAM's trying to do there. Just get that big guy to glitch out and do less damage. But these gaunts look like they're getting to a critical number where they're going to be able to start doing some pretty good DPS. But looks like from Fiction, we've got a little bit of a move out here. A bunch of brutes, looks like 4 brutes plus those original fiends. And their first strike is on this meat farm. If they can take this out, of course, they might be able to capture this health camp, which is a great place to push from. But now all of these gaunts are coming back, and yeah, they are in that health camp, but there's a lot of gaunts here, and those gaunts are on top of the brutes now. The gaunts do really good damage to the fiends, not quite as good. Oh, and we see 3 fiends coming out of that brute. That means we have the brute upgrade. That means that these brutes have 10 armor now, which of course gives them higher effective hit points, especially fighting against these gaunts. And of course, as I mentioned, when you split those brutes now or when they die, 3 fiends come out instead of 2. Now that's just going to allow there to be a lot more fiends on the field for Fiction. And it looks like Fiction is going to be putting down a third while maybe now taking this ore camp. Although, what do we have here? Some fiends going to capture the ore camp down below. Looks like Fiction has decided to go back to the creeping, splitting a couple of his brutes there. The problem here is this bruiser just destroys these fiends, so I like to let my brutes kind of tank on that bruiser a little bit. A lot of fiends going down here, and the first gaunts, it looks like, coming out for Fiction as well. Now with more army back home, this third base is now up, and oCRamoid missed here. oCRaM came to clear out this Therium camp, and oCRAM's Gaunt force is starting to get really large here. Looks like it's maybe about 20. And long distance mining, that's interesting. Yeah, turning them around. Okay, trying to capture the Therium camp, but with this Shroud Stone here, that makes it a little bit hard. And what do we have? A Shroud Stone going down for Fiction now, too. Both of them just trying to control this center a little bit. That Shroud Stone goes down, but now we see all those Gaunts coming in. That's a force that I'm not sure. Well, looks like Fiction does want a battle. We have some Nightfall infestations going down on both teams. That's going to be Infest plus a slow effect. We see that Infest on those Gaunts, but so far the Infest doing the damage over time, but not a lot of Fiends coming out of that. Although it looks like oCRAM's Gaunt force is certainly going to clean this up and remain in control of this Luminite tower. And we've got our first mag out. Now, mags are pretty strong against Gaunts, but only a single mag. Oh, and we see, of course, and now that the trample has been used, oCRAM saying, okay, I'm going to keep pushing in. You have a cooldown now on that stomp, and I might be able to do some damage before it refreshes. I noticed he was not focusing down the mag. Again, there's armor on the mags, armor's on those brutes, meaning that they're just a little bit more resilient against this Gaunt force. And it looks like the Gaunts decide, okay, we're going to go grab this speed camp and then make our way back home. Third base going down for oCRAM now. Of course, we see that Fiction's been mining from this base for a while, and Fiction is back, retaking his health camp. Got some ore mining going on here. We've got a great shrine. It looks like we do have a Twilight Spire going down here for Fiction. And back home, a lot more conclaves going down just to continue pumping those Gaunts out. We're up to 6 conclaves. Looks like Gaunt is the composition that oCRAM is going to go for. Now remember, Gaunts have been a staple for Infernal armies on most of the patches. But on this patch, they did have a nerf to their Infest with a buff to their damage. That buff to their damage just undoes the nerf to their damage that they got on the last patch, while giving a nerf to their Infest, meaning Infest will only come from Plague Axes if the target unit is on Shroud. Now, there has been some discussion about whether this is the right way to make this Plague Axes Infest work for the Gaunts, and I think there's still going to be some changes coming out in the future, but I do think that this has been a step in the right direction for the Gaunt. But nonetheless, we see here that oCRAM, like a lot of Infernals on this patch, still are committed to a heavy Gaunt plate. The Infest still, if you can get it off, is going to allow you to get those Fiends, and now we have a big push. This Gaunt force plus these Weavers coming in. Now the Weavers, they can pull down. Now we've got the Magmadon trample going down. These Weavers trying to tank these Magmadons. One of these Weavers is pretty low, but now we've got those Gaunts pushing forward. We've got one of the Magmadons down. Is that trample going to refresh? We've got Hellborns in the back doing some damage as well. Oh, we got one of those Weavers pulls that Magmadon in. Those other Magmadons going in with those massive stomps. Oh, we got some good AoE damage there, but I don't see a lot of those Gaunts going down as a result of them. A lot of them are very low. We see a few of them dying to Shroud Stones, Fellhogs, and so on because they're so low at life. But still, these Weavers now pulling in the Hellborns, those siege units from the Black Line. Now all of the Weavers are down. No more Yanks are going to be able to grab those high target units. And wow, are these Gaunts going to be able to continue to push back. All those brutes in the front line have gone down, but those fiends are still able to push back. One more Weaver here. Yanking a Hellborn. Gaunts on both sides. Now we see if you are standing on creep and you get hit by those shroud, and you get hit by those plague axes, you are going to get some infest. We see infest on some of these gaunts, although not a huge swarm of fiends yet. That's usually what you're looking for with this gaunt composition, is to get a snowball of fiends. But these brutes are really tanking these gaunts right now. Brutes in the front line, gaunts in the back line. This is just a back and forth between these two players. Brutes retreating for a second, trying to get back to their Shroud Stones. Again, lots of effigies down to put Shroud out here for both members. oCRaM now being able to get off Shroud, which is just a benefit. It's a very strange work. Oh, we now have those Molten Touch on the Hellborn. That Hellborn in the back is now able to shoot these giant fireballs that do damage over time. Ooh, good hit. See all those gaunts on fire there? That's that one strike from the Hellborn. Oh, another good hit. Pushing these gaunts into the third, having to fight around the Shroud Stone, but managing to do damage to these imps. And doing damage to imps means on top of Shroud there, they're going to be infested and a bunch of fiends are going to come out. But fiends for Fiction as well, pushing this gaunt force all the way back up the hill again, and still trying to kite these units. oCRaM, oh, and with a giant Molten Touch, aggroing those creeps, and now oCRaM is forced back, and Fiction is forced to fight off these creeps, allowing oCRaM to get a little bit of a retreat here. Okay, that was a really good battle out front of Fiction's base, and I think just the mixture of units that Fiction has just proven to be a little bit better than the composition, which is really high gaunt composition for oCRaM. These Weavers, of course, doing some work. They're important to be able to pull those high-value targets from Fiction in, like that Hellborn in the back there that we saw was doing work. But other than those Hellborn, there's not a lot of high target. There's no more mags on the field here. Those yanking in a Hellborn. These brutes, again, doing a lot of tank, really cost-effective tanking. These gaunts on top of the army, all the gaunts firing, although now they're in retreat. Back to the Shroud Stone, pulling in a Magmadon. Again, we see that Molten Touch with all that damage over time. And again, this force from Fiction. I think the strong tanking brutes up front just keep pushing the gaunts back. The gaunts have to keep pushing back. Now this Shroud Stone looks like it's going to go down. Yeah, and now more gaunt reinforcements coming from oCRaM. This is looking like this is not going to be a battle that Fiction can win. Fiction's going to want to retreat here, although those brutes are too heavily committed, and we now see the gaunts of oCRaM pushing forward, trying to get on top of that Hellborn, seeing if they can kill it. Oh, and a nice little surround from the fiends, making it hard for the Hellborn to retreat, finally going down. And it looks like these retreating units from Fiction are going to be pushed back into his base. Now this base is mining heavily. It looks like both of these players have managed to get that third up and are now going for that fourth to get the Therium. Of course, Therium very important for an Infernal army. So many of those good units cost Therium. All these gaunts, of course, costing Therium, but also the Weavers, the Magmadons, the Hellborns, all costing a lot. Now we do also see oCRaM going for another expansion up here, trying to get a fifth base down, and now these gaunts are on top of this expansion. The Shroud Stone's going down, and while the Shrine is up, it looks like the gaunts are just going to be able to take it out, trying to spy, hey, is there another base going down for you up here? No, there is not, which is good news for oCRaM. Of course, we do have another base going down for Fiction up here, so it looks like a little bit of a lull in the just ongoing battle while they both try to get up some expansions, and unfortunately this one expansion from Fiction denied by oCRaM. Now oCRaM is retreating back onto his Shroud. You can see he's spreading that Shroud out onto the map so that his Weavers, which are really slow off the map, or off the Shroud, sorry, but have this speed boost on the Shroud. Again, out into the middle of the map here. Looks like Fiction is trying to, again, make a play for this camp, but oCRaM's units were in a good position. And now we see a Dragon out from Fiction. Now this could be really good for him, although the Gaunts, of course, are good anti-air. And now we've got a conflict in the middle of the map. 4 Weavers. That's a nice Weaver force. Not a lot out of Fiction here, other than the Dragon and some Brutes doing the tanking. And while the Dragon... Oh, and now the Dragon's going to get focused fire. And it's going to try and fly away, try and retreat with that Hellborn. These Gaunts from oCRaM, just a large Gaunt force. The Brute still tanking, and surprisingly well, I would say. A yank going down on that Hellborn. That Dragon still might... Oh, but a ton of Shadow Flyers. That Dragon saying, I'm going to get out of here. oCRaM knows exactly what he needs to take out that Dragon. That's almost an overcommit to Shadow Flyers, but if he's going to be bringing out his own Dragon soon, Shadow Flyers are a great way to defend against the Shadow Flyers of your opponent. Now, these Shadow Flyers just going back and forth, trying to find that Dragon, trying to keep that Dragon from coming out and engaging the army. In that push, it looks like Fiction was able to take over the Luminite camp, and now he's going to try and get this speed camp as well. It looks like oCRaM as well. With these refreshing camps, you do want to go back. The income from them increases. You also get those healing bonuses again. But now this army from Fiction is coming down on the Therium camp. We've got a Summon Shroud Stone in the back there. And we've got these Shadow Flyers trying to chase that Dragon off. But look at how many Fiends there are. That Dragon does so many Fiends. When it kills a unit, it does 2 Fiends. And that's what happens when all those imps went down at that Therium base. They turned into this army for Fiction, and now now we have a giant clash of armies here. Unfortunately, a lot of Fiction's units are occupied by those creeps, meaning that there was a lot of damage being dealt by oCRaM's army on those Fiends. Of course, the Fiend army is just so large, and even though these Gaunts do really good damage against these light Fiends, there's just so many of them. And again, Fiction's units are being taken over by these creeps, but still managing to push oCRaM's Gaunt force back. Although now the Fiend force has been whittled down quite a bit. No one is on Shroud here, so we're not going to be getting any infests from the Plague Axes. But with oCRaM retreating here, we now have the Dragon on top of these imps again, and we saw what happened when the Dragon's on top of these imps. We're getting a ton of Fiends starting to show up. This Fiend force is exactly what Fiction is going to need to try and overwhelm this Gaunt force, because again, we see these Gaunts are forced to just fight the Fiends in the front, while the other units, the Gaunts and so on, are able to do damage. We've got a Magmadon up front. Looks like he's starting to get focused down by these Gaunts. Lots of Fiends, Shadow Flyers. That Dragon is still alive. Unfortunately, those Shadow Flyers have not been able to make a good contact. And now this force, a snowball of Fiends is starting to happen. Almost an avalanche, I'd say, as these Gaunts keep retreating back into... And then Magmadon coming in with some tramples, cutting off a whole bunch of those Fiends. And that's a GG coming out of oCRaM for this first game. Alright, thanks a lot for watching, and stay tuned for some more Stormgate content.